So Japan is having a huge moment right now. I mean, it is in the middle of a massive tourism boom, and travelers are pouring in to see all its incredible sights. But you know, behind all those perfect photos, there's a pretty serious challenge growing, and it's one that's really changing daily life in some of the country's most beloved spots.
Just take a look at this number. In 2024, Japan is on track to welcome almost 37 million foreign tourists. That is an all-time record. And while, yeah, it's a huge boost for the economy, it's also putting some incredible, and I mean incredible, pressure on the country's infrastructure.
And that really brings us to the big question of this whole explainer. When millions and millions of people visit, what's the hidden cost? What happens when a place's popularity actually becomes its biggest problem? Well, this is the story of overtourism.
To really get a handle on the problem, we first need to look at where all these visitors are actually going.
You see, it's not really a surprise that most tourists head straight for the famous Big Three: Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto. But this intense focus creates these super concentrated hotspots, and it's starting to overwhelm everything from public transport to local services. It's fundamentally changing the character of these historic communities.
Okay, so let's zoom in on the specific cities that are feeling the most strain. We're going to start with what's basically become the poster child for this whole issue.
Right at the top of the list, we've got Kyoto, the former imperial capital. You know it, famous for its serene temples, its geisha districts, and that incredible traditional atmosphere. But that serenity? It's under some serious threat right now. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Look at the sheer scale of this imbalance. Kyoto has a population of just under 1.5 million people, but it hosts over 56 million tourists a year. Just think about that. Imagine if your city's population was outnumbered by visitors almost 40-1. That is the reality for people living there.
Next up is Kamakura. It's this beautiful coastal city, not too far from Tokyo, known for its giant Buddha statue and temples. And a huge part of its charm is that it's a small town, but that's also the source of its biggest problem.
And that brings us to this number, 65 times. Now, this isn't just some random statistic. This number is a measurement of pressure that reveals the real story of overtourism, and it's something that just looking at raw visitor numbers can't show us.
Because, you see, to really understand the pressure on a city, it's not just about the total number of tourists. It's about how that number compares to the number of people who actually live there.
And this right here is the crucial metric, the population to guest ratio. It's actually really simple. You take the number of annual tourists and divide it by the local population. The higher that ratio is, the greater the strain on a community's resources and just their overall way of life. And this slide just perfectly illustrates why that ratio matters so much. So Tokyo gets a massive 30 million tourists, right? But because it's such a huge metropolis, its ratio is only about 3x. Now look over at Hakone, this tiny hot spring town. It gets way fewer tourists, only 5 million, but its ratio is a staggering 250x. That means for every one resident, there are 250 tourists. Now that's pressure.
This chart just makes the true hotspots crystal clear. I mean, Hakone's ratio is literally off the charts. Kamakura, the town we just mentioned, has a ratio of 65 tourists for every single resident. And you can see that Nara, Kyoto, and the beautiful little canal town of Otaru are all feeling a very similar, very intense pressure.
So what are these cities doing to fight back? Well, it turns out they're getting pretty creative, implementing a whole range of countermeasures to try and find some balance.
What's cool is how the solutions are tailored to each city's specific problems. So in Kyoto, they're using a tourist tax to help fund improvements for their super overcrowded buses. Kamakura is tackling its insane street congestion with real-time congestion maps. Nara is focusing on education campaigns to protect its famous deer. And even a megacity like Tokyo is using timed entry systems to manage crowds at the most popular spots.
When you boil it all down, it really comes down to this. The goal isn't to stop tourism altogether, of course not. It's about managing it, finding a way to welcome visitors while still protecting the quality of life for the residents who call these beautiful places home.
So, what does all of this mean for you? Well, understanding these challenges is really the key to being a more respectful visitor, and honestly, to having a much better, less crowded trip for yourself. Here are just a few simple steps you can take. Before you go, look up those official congestion maps. They're a real thing. Try to visit popular places at off-peak times, like super early in the morning. Be aware of the local rules. For example, some areas in Kyoto now have photography bans in private alleys to protect residents. And finally, think about exploring destinations that are just a little bit off the beaten path.
So as Japan continues to welcome the world, the experience is really becoming a shared responsibility between the host cities and us, the visitors. And knowing the pressures, knowing the potential solutions, the question is no longer just where you'll go, but how you'll choose to visit.